Hello and welcome back to another video here at the Coriander Quilt Studio. My name is Cori Yoder. Our video today is jam-packed full of goodness. We are going to be starting with what you see here. This is Nicole's baby/olive quilt. We're going to be finishing this. And then while it's finishing up in the washer and dryer, we are going to do $5 pattern for November. I've got a whole bunch of works in progress to share with you. We're drawing our next work in progress that we're working on for November. I've got an amazing thrift store find that I will also be sharing with you. All in all, just jam-packed full of goodness, so stick around. I have a fun viewer quilt share that we're going to start off with today. This one just came in. I looked at the photos and I thought that is the one that I want to share today because it's just adorable. This came in from Julie O, and she says, "Hello, Cori and Nicole. I want to share my favorite pattern for baby quilts, woolly wall hanging. The first picture shows using your Starberry line, which has been my most favorite Christmas collection ever. The second picture is using various fabrics. This one was made for my first great-grandson. The last picture was made for my daughter-in-law who is opening a small preschool. Her theme at the preschool is farm life, and she has 2 ewes on the property, along with chickens, bunnies, a horse, and a farm dog and cat. Hope you enjoy the pictures." Well, we sure did. I especially thought that the little sheep hair that you added there in that last quilt was just adorable. All 3 quilts, so cute. And what a great baby quilt pattern. It makes a great wall hanging, but it's also the perfect size for a baby quilt. And I just thought those pictures were adorable. So thank you for sharing those with us, Julie. Speaking of baby quilts, we're going to move right into this baby quilt that we've been working on for Olive, Nicole's daughter. Now, Nicole was the one that was working on this, and as I mentioned in last week's video, Olive was sick, and so not as much progress got made. And so when she came in to work this week, I asked her if she would mind if I would help her out with making the quilt, and she did not mind at all. I didn't want to take over the project, but I did remember that when my daughter Chloe was 3, I was having my second daughter Eleni, and I had a quilt that was waiting for me to finish that I was making for Chloe. It was pieced, it was quilted, and it needed the binding added. And I did not get that binding sewn on before I went to the hospital to have Eleni. And I remember coming home from the hospital and the quilt binding was finished, and my mom had finished it while I was at the hospital, unbeknownst to me. And I was so thankful because I don't know when that quilt would have been finished had she not done that. So I know that sometimes we have such good intentions to finish things and it just doesn't go quite according to plan, or it gets pushed back a little bit, and that is just fine. So I am helping Nicole out with this project and what has happened so far since we last chatted. All of the quilting has been complete. I'm going to show you what the back looks like, so I think you can see. Well, maybe you can see. I'm not sure how well that white thread shows up on camera, but it's been machine quilted 1/2 inch apart across the whole entire quilt. Remember, we marked these at 45-degree angles, so it's just this really pretty straight line diagonal quilting across the whole entire quilt. If you missed the first video where I chatted about the process for beginning this quilt, I'll be sure and have it linked. So if you decide after seeing this finish that you would like to make one of these quilts for yourself, you'll have the information you need. So everything has been sewn, and now we are cutting apart. I just love doing this. This is fun. It looks so pretty. Now we are cutting apart in between each line, right down the center. And I've done a lot of it, but I wanted to save a little bit of it to do on camera. This is what it's looking like so far. So you can kind of get an idea of what's going to happen here with this quilt once we wash it the first time. But I'm going to show you what we're doing here after you have sewn all of those lines. You are cutting apart. Now, there are special cutters that are made for cutting these apart. I tried one probably 20 years ago, and I think it was probably user error, but I did not have success with it. Someone mentioned they have one that they were going to try out, so I hope she lets me know how it goes for her, because I feel like it was probably I was doing something wrong. Even if I wasn't, over the course of the 20 years since I would have tried it out, I'm sure there have been new cutters made, invented, and there might be something great for cutting these lines faster than using a scissors. I'm going to be using a scissors. I do like using one that has the spring action. I think that's a little bit easier on the wrists rather than traditional scissors. So that's what I'm using here for this. You can use whatever works well for you, but what we want to do is we want to cut apart. Let me show you here. We want to cut the top 3 layers, but we want to leave that backing layer intact. So we're just going to slide our scissors in between these layers and cut right down the center. This doesn't have to be perfect. Make sure before you start cutting that you are not through that back layer. If you cut through that back layer, you're not going to end up with the project that you want. So we're just cutting through those top 3 layers right down the center. And this is a good project to plop on your lap and work on, maybe while you're doing something in the evening, watching a little TV, having a little downtime, whatever it might be. This does take a fair amount of time to get all of these cut, at least using a scissors. But like I said, there might be some other fancy cutters that would cut this faster. If you have one of those cutters, if you know what I'm talking about and you have one that you want to recommend, feel free to leave that for us in the comments so that we also have that information. But this is all we're doing. You're going to do this in between every line. My scissors could be a little sharper, but it's getting the job done. I tried a few different scissors yesterday when I started on this, because I thought, well, maybe there's going to be a different one that I'm going to like a little bit better, but this one was definitely my favorite. But you might have a different preference on how to do this. So we're just cutting. You might even split this up. Sewing the lines takes a while, cutting takes a while. None of it is hard or tricky. It just takes some time. So you might split this into a couple of days or maybe even weeks. There's no rush when we're making quilts. We want it to be enjoyable as we are working on our projects, not rushed and frenzied. Sometimes it can feel that way when we're trying to get something done, but hopefully it is a fun project. Okay, so that is how things are going to look like as we're working on them. I'm going to continue cutting this apart. Actually, I'm going to take that cutting mat off. I don't need that here for right now. I'm going to continue cutting this. And then once I get these all cut, I'm going to tell you what our next thing we need to do. And there we go. We have all of the lines cut. Hopefully I haven't missed any. When I was cutting yesterday, I noticed that I had missed one, but I think I've got them all this time. So this is what it looks like after everything has been cut. So the back still looks the same. Hopefully, hopefully that still looks the same and you haven't accidentally cut. Just got to make sure you get your scissors in the right notch when you're cutting out those top 3 layers, but this is what it looks like now. The next thing we need to do is trim this so that all of the edges are nice and tidy. I'm also going to be making curved corners, so I'm going to be marking those and cutting those as well. So let's just go ahead. I'll get my cutting mat back up and we're gonna get this all trimmed up. Now, I'm not too fussy about if everything is perfectly square. I'm mostly just wanting to make sure that we don't have uneven edges. I just want everything, all of the fabrics lined up again. You know, none of this. We want everything all straight and tidy. So I'm gonna start on a short side. I'm gonna use this side down here. We're just gonna trim this up. Now you can be as fussy or as non-fussy as you wanna be with straightening this up. I'm not gonna be overly fussy about this. Just wanna make sure that I've got everything trimmed. Okay. So here we go. I'm using the longest ruler that I have, and I'm mostly for this bottom one, I'm just gonna make sure that I am trimming off my white selvage there. Actually, I wouldn't go. We'll do it this way. Make sure your cutter is nice and sharp to go through those layers of fabric. You're cutting through 4 layers of fabric, so you do want it to be nice and sharp so it doesn't give you any trouble. If you need to put a new blade on, you can. I think we always tend to go a little bit long in between changing our rotary cutter blades, and then once we do, we think, why didn't we do that sooner? I know that's the case with me. So now that I have that first edge cut, now I can just line this up over here. I didn't square it up or anything. I could have if I wanted to, but I didn't square my corner. I'm really, as I said, just concerned with getting rid of my extra little bits and bobs over here. So that's what I'm gonna do. Fold that up. I'll get this trimmed up here. It's gonna be a little messy as your little pieces fall off, but it is just fine. That side. This bottom side. Now this one, we mostly need to worry about just getting this trimmed off here. So that's going to be about 1 inch that I'll want to take off the bottom here. Like that. Looks good. One more side to go. And if you had wanted to be real precise about this, you could have squared in your corners using a square ruler to make sure everything is nice and square for you. Okay. This side just needs a little haircut down here. I'm sure there would be videos on squaring up quilts that you could watch if you really wanted some good tips on how to square these up nicely. As I said, I'm more concerned about getting my little overhangs trimmed off than making sure that it's perfectly square. All right, so there we go. We've got everything trimmed up here. So this is what it's looking like now. There she is. The next thing that we're going to do is get these corners rounded. We're doing rounded corners, which makes for a really pretty finish on this edge. You can use any round shape that you have. If you have a plate you can use to trim with, that's fine. Let me just move this up and see if you can see this better. I am going to use this. Can you see that? You can't see that as well. Well, you can see it from this side. So you see how this has a nice curve right here? This back side that you can't see as well has that same curve. And I'm going to use that. I'm just lining up my edges here with the edges of the quilt. And then I'm going to mark this little corner back here. I'll show you what it looks like after I mark it. My picture's a little bit in the way to see exactly what it looks like from the back side, but I'll show you here. You just need to mark that so that you can get a nice curve for your edge. And as I said, a plate works great. A mason jar might be a nice size. If you have one of the quart-sized mason jars, that might work nicely for you. But here we go. So now I have a curved edge right here, and I'm going to repeat that for all of these corners and then trim that off. And that's going to give us a nice rounded corner on each of these corners here. When I mark the next one, I'll try pivoting my quilt so that the point goes to the center of my cutting mat rather than the edge, and see if that allows you to see that just a bit better. Okay. Means that I can't see what I'm doing, but I think you'll be able to see this better. Okay. Big head in the way of that top camera there. Okay, so you can see better this angle, what's happening here, but I'm just using this edge of this little picture to mark this. I've got this edge lined up here and this edge lined up over here. And then because these flannels are cut, I just have to go over it a little bit to make sure that I can see my line. That looks pretty good there. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to go back to me being able to see so I can get this last one marked, and then we can get these corners trimmed. Okay. Last one. Then we just cut these off, and that makes a really nice little rounded edge for our quilt. Okay, there we go. Now I am going to grab my scissors, if I can find it. There we go. Okay, and we're just going to trim those off. Just want to stay right on that line that you marked. Just make a really nice little rounded corner. Like so. This also means when we add our binding, we are not needing to do any fancy corner treatment. We just get to zip around the corner and keep going, which is nice to do. It also means that we are making bias binding so that it has a little bit of give for those corners. One more corner to go. There we go. All right, now just 2 more steps to go. We need to add our binding. and then we need to wash and dry it, and it will be done. So let's talk about that binding. I have already gone ahead and made my bias binding. I'm sure that there are YouTube tutorials on making bias binding if you've never done bias binding. Bias binding is made by cutting your binding strips at a 45-degree angle rather than straight across the width of your binding. And it makes for a stretchier binding, which is nice for going around these corners. You have a little bit of give as you go around when you have bias binding. Bias binding is also a more durable binding, binding that is cut straight across the grain of your fabric. Wears not as nicely as bias binding. So something to keep in mind too, if you know that your quilt is going to get a lot of wash and wear, you might opt for bias binding all the time. I used a half a yard of this stripe from Sherbet Sunshine to make my bias binding, and I cut my strips at 2 inches. I cut 8 strips 2 inches wide. If you are cutting wider fabric strips, just go ahead and purchase 3/4 yards so that you have plenty of fabric. When I machine bind, I like using a 2-inch binding. I do have a tutorial on how I like to attach my machine binding, so I will make sure and link to that video. You could do machine binding for this. You could also do hand binding if that's your preference. So I'm going to go ahead and get this binding completed, and then I will show you what it looks like before I pop it into the wash. All right, I've got the binding added. I do have a comment about adding this binding. I had accounted for the thickness of the 4 layers of flannel, but I didn't think about how much bulkier a flannel binding would be than a regular quilting cotton binding. So were I to do this binding again, I probably would increase that width from 2 inches to 2 1/4 inches, just because it's a thicker binding and it would have been a little bit easier to work with had it been just a hair wider. But this is what it looks like. All done. I think it looks really pretty. It was just a little bit harder to work with at that width. So there it is. Now the magic is going to happen because we are going to throw this into the washer and the dryer. Couple things about the first time you wash and dry this quilt. It is going to create quite a bit of lint, so if you wanted to take it to the laundromat to wash it, you certainly could. I am going to be washing on cold, and I'm going to throw in a couple Shout color catchers to pick up any loose dyes because none of my fabrics have been pre-washed. And I am going to dry it probably just on a warm setting, nothing too hot, nothing too cold. And I think that's it. I'm going to use a more gentle detergent, which if you are gifting for a baby or a youngster, you might opt to do a more gentle detergent. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. While it is washing and drying, I am going to be sharing some fun things with you. So I'm going to get this popped into the washer and dryer and meet you back here while the magic is happening. The quilt is in the wash. While we're waiting, let me show you some of these other things I wanted to chat about. So many things today. First up, I wanted to share this really neat project that my friend Lisa Alexander from Moda sent over for me. These are reusable paper towels that she made using Sherbet Sunshine flannels. She just cut pieces of the flannel and serged around the perimeter of each piece and then rolled them all up so that they can perfectly go onto my paper towel holder, and I can use these in lieu of disposable paper towels. They are so much cuter and such a neat way to use the flannels. So I wanted to show you guys that in case that's something that you think would be fun to do with flannels. You could of course use any flannels that you wanted, but just a really neat project idea. So that was number 1. Number 2 on my show and tell today, I had mentioned that I love good thrifting finds. I've shared another quilt top. It's been about a year or 2 that I found in a thrift store. I found something really fun last week, and so I thought I would show this to you. I found this quilt top hand stitched in these beautiful colors, and I had to bring it home with me. I just had to. I know how much work goes into these. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, how I'm going to finish it. Let me show it to you in a little bit more detail. But all of this stitching, this was $8. $8! And just hours and hours of work went into this. So each of the blocks is the same. The piecing is a little bit in need of some care. So if I were going to want to leave it in the same layout as what it is, I would want to take it all apart, trim everything to size. The seams are substantially different from block to block. Sometimes we have little seam allowances, sometimes we have big, sometimes I know there's some that are even bigger, really wide. So it definitely would need a little bit of attention. There was one I noticed that was a little crookedy because of the way it was sewn together. Not sure if I'm going to be able to find it or not. But the other option that I was thinking about too is taking it apart, adding sashing in fabrics, and then putting it back together. So I don't know if I would want to do that or not. But you can see, like, we need to do something if we want to turn it into a functional project. There is a little bit of staining here and there that I noticed. Nothing too major. Like you can see a little bit right in here maybe. There's a couple different spots, but overall it's in really nice shape. It just needs a little bit of piecing attention. There's a really big seam allowance here. So I would want to take it apart, trim everything down, and then put it back together. But anyhow, I couldn't leave it. I could not leave it. Here's one that would need, this is the one I was looking for, right here. So this right here, this little chunk here, you can see how this should be tucked up in here. These seams should be kind of maneuvered. We'd want to get rid of some of this excess fabric in here. But, you know, those are things that are easy to fix, just requires a little bit of attention. But I was so happy with this. I think it's beautiful. If you do handwork, you know how much time was put into this, and I just couldn't leave it there. I carried it around. I hate picking up things if I don't know what I want to do with them, or I just want to make sure that I'm going to do something with it. I don't mind picking it up if I don't know what I'm going to do. I just want to know that I am going to do something with it. So I debated and wondered, am I actually going to turn it into something? Will I actually finish it, or will it just sit in a pile? But every time I walked back to put it back, I couldn't do it because I knew how much work went into it, and I just had to bring it home, and it's beautiful. So I'll be doing something with it. Maybe not right away. Maybe this is something that gets put onto our works in progress. This is actually a really good idea. Our works in progress thing we've been doing monthly, where we choose the number out. I'm actually going to be choosing the next number in just a little bit. If we do that again in 2026, I could just put this on as one of my works in progress, and that would give it a better chance of getting finished for sure. But I wanted to share that. All right. So that is a fun find. Fun find. You can always find so many fun things at thrift stores. Sometimes, not always, but then you find something like this and it's just exciting. And then I wanted to show something else. A quilt shop in Avon, Indiana sent me this amazing box of Tilda. And I have been talking about the Tilda Christmas line that I am not going to buy because I don't need more fabric. I just don't. And she reached out to me and she said, hey, I have some of that Tilda fabric you've been talking about on your videos. Can I send you some? And so I wanted to show you guys what she sent. So this is Love It Sew is the name of the quilt shop. Darlene was who reached out to me and sent me this amazing package of Tilda goodness. And so for those of you who might not have known what I was talking about when I chatted about the Tilda holiday Christmas fabrics that I was loving, she put together a little goodie bundle. So these are some of the like homespunny sort of prints here. And then these are from the holiday line, and they're just so pretty. So if you've wondered, what in the world is that Cori going on about with these Tilda fabrics she's not buying? This is what they look like. And thank you so much for sending these. Love It Sew, Darlene and gang. These are just beautiful. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I have plenty to do something really fun. The Socialites Quilt Along that Quarter Shop is hosting next year would be a really fun one to use these fabrics. I had already been debating about using Tilda to make that quilt with, so I could do it with these or I could do it with other Tildas. That's kind of what I'm thinking I'm going to do for that sew along, but I haven't decided for sure, but these would be really fun to add to that. But there they are. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. They're kind of throwback, old-timey prints, and I just think they're so pretty. So I just wanted to show you guys those. Love that. Love thinking about what I'm going to do. Oh, and there's even solid down at the bottom too. So I could really just go to town on this box of goodies. I'm not sure. Need to figure out the perfect project, but they're beautiful. I had heard, maybe someone can confirm if this is true or not, that this fabric line may be getting re-released. It sold quick enough that they were going to re-release it. If that's true, let us know. I know that some of it's getting pretty hard to find, but just beautiful. All right, that was my third show and tell I wanted to show today. These are always fun to show you guys so that kind of know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about different things. Next up, let's talk about the $5 pattern for November. I've decided to offer Barn Star 8 as the $5 pattern. That is this one right here. So again, this is a 40-inch square star quilt, perfect for a baby quilt. This is actually the same size as the woolly wall hanging quilt was at the beginning of the video, that little sheep quilt. So this gives you an idea of the size of not only that sheep quilt, but you can see that these quilt patterns, the Barn Stars, work really well for baby quilts, wall hangings, table toppers as well. The fabrics used here are Callie & Co., which is still in quilt shops, so you could still purchase these fabrics. Just a beautiful rainbow of color, and $5 for the month of November. It's available in both PDF as well as paper versions. So that is the $5 pattern. That's over in the Coriander Quilts Etsy shop. I'll have that linked below. So if you wanted to pick that up in November, you could. I can't believe it's already November. We have Ryan's birthday is coming up on the 3rd, November 3rd. And then our anniversary is right after that on November 8th. I think, I can never remember. We got married in '97, so however many years that makes us, we're not quite at 30, but we're over 25. You guys do the math. So we have an anniversary coming up very soon as well. It's always a busy, fun week for us. All right, next we're gonna do works in progress. So I have made some progress on things. I wanted to, okay, hold on. I need to grab this chevron quilt that I talked about last month. This was the work in progress that I finished last month. So you remember seeing this, the chevron quilt. I went back on my website, on the Coriander Quilts blog, to look and see if I could see when exactly I started making this. And I shared it over on the blog when I started, but I thought not all of you read my blog, so you wouldn't have seen that. So this has been a 16 years in the works project. I don't remember the exact date. I wrote it down over there on the blog, but 16 years ago, actually about 16 and a half years. So when Eleni was, she just turned 17. So she was just a little tyke when I was originally working on this project, but I would not have thought that it was 16 years ago. I think I was guesstimating that it was, what did I say, 10 years, 12 years, somewhere in there. I don't even remember what I was thinking, but 16 years, almost as old as Eleni is, this project has been in the works. So it is really fun to have that as a completed quilt top. This works in progress challenge is nice to have because it does help me get some of these things moved on that I don't even realize have been waiting so long to be completed. So I wanted to share that with you. And then some other things, some progress has been made. I finished up another block for the designer mystery. So this one was done already. I had finished this one. I finished block number 2, which is the block here. I am still a little bit behind. I think I have, well, the third one here is mostly cut out, and then I have maybe 4 and 5 that I haven't opened those packages yet, something like that. So I do still need to keep plugging away, but I'm making progress. A lot of these are cut for, oh, there we go. Just had the wrong one. This one. This is the next pattern I need to work on. This is the Ray of Sunshine pattern by Robin Pickens. So I've got a lot of those cut, but I need to cut a little bit more, and then I can piece that together as well. So that is the progress on the Designer Mystery Sew Along. This is also a Fat Quarter Shop program. I think it is currently sold out, but I knew I had to participate because the bloom fabrics are just so much fun to have another reason to use. So I'm working on that. And then the number I chose last month for our Works in Progress challenge was to make at least 1 or more blocks of my apricot and ash blocks I'm working on from the A Very Coriander Christmas. So this is the A Very Coriander Christmas quilt. I originally designed this using the Hollyberry fabric line, and I have been slowly remaking all of the blocks using apricot and ash. And the one that I was working on here was the Create a Memory block, which is this one right here. So that is now done. I did only make one, but I thought I would show you all of the blocks that I've made so far. And this is my plan. So I had this already mocked up, designed before I started making the blocks. So I just swapped out the original fabrics in Hollyberry for these fabrics in apricot and ash. So I can just follow exactly what I chose and cut and sew the blocks pretty quickly. Sometimes making those fabric decisions takes the longest amount of time. So having that already done means I can just start cutting and sewing. So this is the one that I just did. And then we'll just go through these. I've shared these, but it's probably been a year, maybe more, since I shared. This one I made twice. I somehow didn't realize I had one. So I've made this one twice, which means I can use it in another project, or I can use it in the quilt back. I'll find something to do with it. But there's 2 of those. Luckily, that didn't happen with any of the other blocks. We'll just go through them kind of quickly. These are apricot and ash fabrics, as I said. That means if you see what they look like here, you can imagine they would be really pretty in a bloom fabrics. In addition to the colors here, you'd also have that pretty aqua that's in a bloom. And a bloom is in quilt shops right now. Apricot and ash is hard to find. It came out in 2020, so it's been a number of years since it was in quilt shops. But here we go. This is what they're looking like so far. That's a really pretty one. And then this one here. And that is all of them. So I am going to go grab that quilt and show that to you. Oh, hold on. We still need to draw our number, don't we? I want to draw the next Works in Progress number. And then I will go grab that quilt to show you how that turned out. So we have 2 more numbers to choose. Which one is it going to be? This one right here, which is number 3 on my list. Now I have for my number 3 to put the Starberry Log Cabin quilt back together. You have a different item as your number 3. But let me show you these blocks. I'm going to link to this video. It was one I shared last year before. I'm not sure. It's been a little bit. Where I made a Christmas tree using kind of a scrappy jelly roll sort of plan. It was a fun video to make, but I made the video, and then there was a portion of the video that didn't record properly. So I had to take the quilt top apart to refilm that portion of the video. So this was completed and done, and many of you saw it in the video, completed and done, and didn't ever realize that I had to take it apart because I didn't share that part. I don't think. I might have. I don't remember. But it's just been waiting to get put back together. And it's a little silly because I already did it one time. Why do I need to do it again? But I do need to put it back together. This is a fun one to be working on this time of year because it is festive. It's a holiday themed one. So the fact that it's happening now and I get to put it together right before the holidays is perfect. So this will be a really great one to work on, and I don't think I'll have any trouble getting that one done. So I'll link to the video, so if you want to see this crazy quilt come to life, it's kind of a tutorial video, so you could easily make it yourself, but it just needs to get finished for the second time. All right, so that was number 3. Let us know how you did with your work in progress for October. I checked mine off my list, and let us know if you did as well. Now, I will go grab that quilt. And here is how cute this quilt looks like now. It just makes the coziest, softest, cutest little chenille quilt. All of those flannels just fuzz up and become super cute. So that is what it looks like once it is washed and dried, but just super cute. Super cute. There it is. Finished, ready for our sweet little Olive to enjoy. That's what the back of it looks like. It's really nice and cozy and just really cute. So there it is. For those of you perplexed with how it might turn out, what was going to happen after we cut and washed, this is what happens. It does fun things. And that is a wrap on the super simple baby quilt. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I will catch you again next time.